Did you hear that, brother, man? Woo! I'm going to ask my brother Shaka Senghor to also come up to the stage. So, they say I've been asked to bring you home. Look, I have rewritten my comments 7 times since coming in this morning, but I really am just going to focus on a couple themes I want to leave you with. First of all, seeing how many millennials are in this group, I'm going to tell you, most of my comments are directed to you. I was a 20-something, 20-odd years ago when a bunch of folks were telling me that, you know, we messed up the world and we got all these challenges. We're going to tell you how to fix it. And I was thinking, well, if you messed it up, I mean, why am I? Which didn't earn me a lot of friends, but, you know, I'm still here. So a couple things I want to leave you with. One is, it's time for a new, true story about black people in this country. It is true that there are challenges and deficits and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's true. But there are other truths. Let me point them out to you. Some folks up here have been to church before, right? So I'm going to ask you to turn quickly to the person sitting next to you. Turn to your neighbor. This will only take 30 seconds. Turn to your neighbor. Okay? I want you to look intently at the person across from you just for a few seconds. I want you to focus on them, and here's what I want you to do. Focus on the person next to you and try to notice everything you can about what is wrong with this person in front of you. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, you can stop. Okay, you can stop. There's a reason that I do this, because we have to get to some truth, all right? Everybody laughs. I've done this many times. Everyone laughs. Everyone feels uncomfortable. And why do you feel uncomfortable? You feel uncomfortable because it is just plain wrong to look at somebody, and the first thing you do is try to figure out everything that's wrong with them. But when we talk about our brothers across the country, when we talk about black men, what is the first thing that we do except to identify what is wrong with them? This is not an accident. This is a real problem. Why is it a real problem? If you add up what you have been taught about black men in this country, you can reach only one conclusion. They are detrimental to the future of this country. Why do I say that? What is the positive stereotype if you are Asian? The positive stereotype if you're a black woman. Black women contribute, backbone of the family, all that stuff. If you're Latino, right? Hardworking, whatever. What's the positive stereotype for black men in general? That's all you got. That's it. If you're not dribbling or singing, you are a threat to everybody else's future. That story's got to go. We're not going to deficit model our people. It's wrong to identify somebody by their challenges. Everybody's got challenges. It's wrong to identify somebody by their challenge. You got people walking around with a false impression. There's a research psychologist named Daniel Kahneman. He did the background work for what became behavioral economics, but groundbreaking stuff. He's literally considered the father of this behavioral economics. He's a Nobel Prize type dude, but the point is, Daniel Kahneman talks about a very simple psychological thing called a cognitive illusion. And it's based off of a simple idea that what you see, as far as your mind is concerned, what you see is all there is. So what is it that you see? Right? Particularly those of us in the boomer generation. Actually, I'm not a boomer, but close enough. I'm a Gen Xer. But particularly folks in the older generation, what you see is all there is. So let me ask you a question. How many people here have heard statistics that say 50% of black kids graduate or drop out, I should say. 50% drop out. We've heard that kind of stuff. Actually, I'm going to get you involved. Don't sit here and look at me. I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you have heard that black unemployment is much higher than white unemployment? Yeah, it's easy. Okay, what you see is all there is. How many of you have heard that black folks, black boys in particular, are dropping out of high school and dropping out of college, right? Come on, don't be shy. Right. What you see is all there is, right? How many of you have heard that black poverty is higher than, other poverty, right? Or higher rates than other folks, right? Again, what you see is all there is, right? So if this is what you know about us, then of course, who do you think we are? What options do you have? How many ways can you tell our story? How many of you have been told, whether you're young or old, that you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as much, Somebody thinks they're preparing you for some productive view of the world by convincing you that the world will cheat you out of half of your effort, right? This is the story we tell. The story you tell creates the world you'll see. So we have to tell a new true story. And by the way, you do have to work twice as hard to be successful. Wait. Everybody does. The person who's still grinding when the rest of y'all are sleeping is going to win. That's just the way it is. Not just because you're black, not just because you come from a certain background. That's just the way it is. Anybody who's reached the top works hard. So let's do that. But I said I was directing my comments to the millennials, and here's why. When we were looking at what we could do to change the narrative, improve the future, do all these things around black men and boys, we worked not just with researchers like Chip and Dan Heath and folks who are doing all this amazing stuff in academia. We also went and worked closely with probably the world's largest marketing firm, global marketing firm, right? If they're not number one, they're in the top 3 around the planet. It's Ogilvy and Mather. And we talked with those folks about what do you do around narrative and how do you insert yourself in cultural conversations and what's really going on. And they gave us an analysis of what's happening in the world that I'm going to share with you that makes a huge difference, particularly if you're a millennial. What they pointed out was, writ large, particularly in the United States, the baby boomer generation is also the civil rights generation. And that generation made significant progress by responding to significant crises, right? And they learned how to interpret and to motivate through the crisis narrative. They won't even try to get you excited without telling you that the house is on fire, right? They're not going to excite you about the future. They're going to excite you about your need to survive. One of the things about crisis narratives is that it always has in it this idea that the highest goal ultimately is to achieve what basically amounts to breaking even, survival. You can recognize crisis narrative people because they'll tell you how important it is to achieve equality, to close gaps. They'll tell you stories about, one of their highest goals if you're an environmentalist is sustainability, which again just means breaking even, as long as you can survive. There's another way to tell the story. So Be Me, which is the organization that we started, is about building caring and prosperous communities inspired by black men. Now, is this thing working? Would you go forward one more? One more. Again. Okay, thank you. We work entirely from an asset narrative. Asset approach obviously does not start with the problem, but it starts with a vision of what you want to create. Rather than trying to be fixers of problems, we want to be builders of communities. So let me play this out for you a little bit. I asked you a minute ago, how many of you know the negative stats about black folks, dropout rates, et cetera? Raise your hand if you know how many black males have their college degrees in the United States. Okay, there's 2, 3, okay. Bobby wrote it down somewhere, but I got you, okay. Raise your hand if you have any idea of how many black males, or black folks, but black males create businesses in the United States. Look around. Raise your hand if you have a sense of how many of our brothers serve this country in uniform. What I'm trying to point out to you is that for whatever reason, you can only tell our story one way. You can only tell the story of the demise and the threat and the need to address black men lest they destroy our future. We have to change that. You will not produce any productive outcomes with a deficit frame. Earlier in the day, you may have heard people share data that showed that after X number of years of trying from this frame, no real change. It's not a growth model. And believe it or not, it's not even a survival model because you can't survive if you won't grow. So we think more about an asset frame. And just to answer some questions I raised, there are obviously more black men in college than there are in prison, but there's over 3 million black male right now who have college degrees. In fact, between the ages of 18 and 24, 39% of black males have college degrees, right? So if we're talking about what's normal, That's about as normal as anything, right? When we talk about black males as assets, this is not to be nice. We're not being hyperbolic about this. It's not a kind thing. 25% of black males are already military veterans. I'm talking about the adults, obviously. 25% of adult black males have already served their country in uniform. Another 400,000 are on active duty. That means that almost a third of the black men in this country serve and protect this country. When you think about business creation amongst black folks is growing at 2.5 times the rate as the national average. So now you have people who serve and protect. You have people who are enterprising. When it comes to giving, black people give to charity 25% more than white folks across all economic levels. So let me help you out now by trying to wake you up, because I realize y'all might have to move a little bit. I need like a real honest show of hands here, because there's a pretty dominant perception, and it's not based entirely on fantasy. There's some fact to some negative perceptions. So just raise your hand if you personally know a brother who's taken a life. Yeah, this is an engaged group. Y'all should have, y'all should connect. Oh, I'm sorry, kill someone else, not themselves. But yeah, but nonetheless, it's a good number, right? And this is a group that's very engaged and very concerned. So it's a reality. It happens. Now I want you to raise your hands if you know a brother who owns a business. Even more hands. I want you to keep them up if you know a brother who owns more than two. Or you know more than two brothers who own businesses, yes. We need to tell a new, true story. It's true that death and murder happens. It's more true that enterprise and entrepreneurship happens. You just demonstrated that. Let me make it a little bit more interactive. I mentioned the military stats. Some of you might not believe me, so I want you to do this. If your feet are crossed or there's something underneath your feet that you stand on, then uncross them, because you're going to have to stomp your foot to make this work, right? No, just to get a sense of what's going on here. Just stomp your foot one time if you know a brother who is in the military. Twice if you know two. 3 times if you know 3. What is our normal? What is our normal? I want you to clap your hands once if you know a brother who helps others just because he can. Twice if you know 2. 3 times if you know 3. 4 times if you know 4. I could probably count to 100 and I'd just get a standing ovation. I'm just trying to tell the new truth. We got to tell a new true story. These facts are just as factual as those negative facts, but how often do you hear them and how much do you focus on them? Because what you focus on has power. What you see is all there is. I'm going to close my section of the comments by pointing out that Be Me tells 3 stories. Would you go back to the one more? So our mission is to build caring and prosperous communities inspired by black men. We break the mission down into these categories. You don't have to memorize this slide. I'm just sharing it so you understand. We actually go to leaders of things with these stats and facts and stories about what real brothers are doing in real places from all different walks of life. That's what we call our air game. Our ground game is about going on the ground in real communities, supporting brothers, no matter what status they come from, to do what they believe is important to do to help build better communities. And our growth game is about plugging in anyone who cares about these communities, any race, any sex, who cares about building community. We plug them into the network, and we try to make sure that they have access to assets, because we all need that to thrive and survive. And the way these stories break out when you get down to it, our narrative, the new true story, starts with black men as assets, recognize that black people are unlimited, and ends with the fact that we're all better together, right? All race, all colors, all sex. That's the way it has to be. So just like if I was a preacher, I'd ask you to say, assets? Oh, see, now y'all sleeping, man. Come on. I'm not going to get off the mic till you wake up. Assets. That's better. Unlimited. Together. Those are the 3 narratives, and we're on the ground proving it. I'm going to pass the mic to my brother, Shaka Senghor, and one thing I'll point out to you about our approach. Be Me funds guys on the ground and in different walks of life who are doing things that matter. But again, since we start with this assets, we believe black is unlimited, and we believe in better together, then you'll notice we don't actually call folks that we work with participants or any of that kind of stuff. It's just brothers and sisters. No matter what race you are. But it's funny, the Be Me guys, the people we funded and the folks we work with, they just started doing this. We didn't assign the language. It's just what we call each other. And before Shaka comes up, I'm going to ask, because we talk about this asset framing, we were serious on it. David and I have been tag teaming this last couple of weeks at conferences. But we're real serious about it. So I'm going to ask anyone who's worked with Be Me in the past, would you just stand up for a second? Because I want people to get a, I know you two in the audience, but come on. Amanda, Malcolm, those of you at OSF, I see Donna over there. Just stand for a quick second. Okay? No, stay up. The reason I'm drawing attention to these folks is because in our space, the philanthropic space, you don't get paid until you denigrate someone. You have to first identify them as a problem, a threat, a disadvantage this, a poor that. Like, you have to tear people down before you can build them up in our space. But there's a whole segment of us who have rejected that. Dr. Austin led off rejecting that 20 years ago. But there's a whole segment of us who reject that notion. And we believe in the asset frame. So I'm going to, thank you folks. So I'm going to ask my brother Shaka to come up, and before he do, just repeat 3 words after me. 1, asset, unlimited, and together.